So, hey everyone, in this video we're going to be doing the angle addition formulas. So, these are the angle addition formulas for sine, cosine, and also tangent. So for example, we want to do, so this is one of them. We would say the cosine of 165, the sine of 165, and the tangent of 165. So let's first do the cosine of 165. For this one, what you have to do is you have to you have to put this is basically like saying the cosine, let's see, so if you do your unit circle, you have 0, 90, 180, 360, or sorry, 270, and then 360 right here. So this one would be, let's see, so it would be 60 degrees. This one would be, I think, 45 degrees, and then this one would be 30 degrees. And then you also have, let's see, so then you also have 120, and then 135, and then 150, and then 180. And you also have, let's see, it would be it would be 210, and then it would be 225, and then you would have, I think, so 210, 225, and then plus 15, it would be 240, so it would be 240, and then you'd have 270, and then you would have, I think, for this one, it would be 300, and then 315, and then 330, and then 360. So you want to have two angles that either add to or subtract to get 65 degrees, and 65 degrees would be like around here. So basically we know that to get 65 degrees, we have to do two angles on the unit circle. Yeah, that add to or subtracted to 165. Sorry, to 165, not 65. So you would have, so if you have the cosine, so it would be like saying the cosine of 100 plus 65, but again, we don't have a number that, that we don't have, what the cosine of 100 is or 65 is. So let's see, give me a second. So we could do, we could do 120 plus 45, because 120 plus 45 gives you 165, and they're right here. So, this is the same as saying, this formula right here. So it would be cosine of 120 times the cosine of 45 degrees plus the sine of 120 times the sine of 45 degrees. Just make sure it's yeah, sorry. I was just making sure it was recording. So, then you would say 120 degrees, you would say, the way I like to normally do this is by changing it to radians. If you don't know what 120 degrees, the cosine of 120 degrees is in degrees, you can always turn it into radians. This is 120 pi over 180 pi. The pi and the 0 cancel out, so then you would have over 180. Not. So the 0 would cancel out, and you would have 12 pi over 18. You would divide that by 6, and you get 2 pi over 3. And we all know that for pi over 3, we have, so it would be 1/2 the square root of 3 over 2. This would be cosine, and this would be sine. And then you would say, okay, so then you would say that this is going to be, so it's asking for the cosine of 2 pi over 3. And 2 pi over 3 is over here, over in the second quadrant. In the second quadrant, it's negative, positive. So since it's the cosine for 2 pi over 3, it's going to be negative 1/2 the square root of 3 over 2. And since it's asking for cosine, we need to do this one right here. So it would be cosine of 120 degrees would be negative 1/2. And then we all know what the cosine of 45 degrees is. The cosine of 45 degrees. And if you don't know, you can always just do the same thing. It's the square root of 2 over 2. And then for the sine 45 degrees, be the square root of 2 over 2. And then for the sine of 120 degrees, you would have, let's see, so it would be the square root of 3 over 2, since it's positive. And so you then plug it into your equation. So then you would have the cosine of 120. So if you look at this equation right here, you would then plug it in over here. So you would have cosine of 120 is negative 1/2 times the cosine of 45 is the square root of 2 over 2, and then plus the sine of 120 is the square root of 3 over 2 times the cosine, times the sine of 45 degrees is the square root of 2 over 2. So you would have negative square root of 2 over 4 plus the square root of 2 times 3 over 2, which is over 4, over 4, and that would give you negative the square root of 2 plus the square root of 6 all over 4. And that would be your answer for that one. And then for the sine of 120 degrees, you would use this one, since you're adding them again. But so if you want to do the sine, the sine of 165, you would do this one. So then you would say, so if we put sine of 165, that would be the sine of 120 plus 45 and therefore you would have, I'm going to try to label this one. So you would have the sine of 120 plus 45, and then you would say, you would use this equation. So you would say sine of x cosine of y, so it would be sine of 120 times the cosine of 45 degrees plus the cosine of, I think it's sine of x cosine of y plus cosine of x, so it would be cosine of 120 times the sine of 45 degrees. So, and of course this is also degrees, my bad, it's also degrees. So, you would then say the sine of 120, if you look at it, it corresponds to this one. This is going to be the sine. So the sine of 120 is the square root of 3 over 2, and then times the cosine of 45 degrees, which is the square root of 2 over 2, and then plus the cosine of 120, which is going to be this one, I think. Yeah, the cosine of 120, which is negative 1/2, so we're going to put it in parentheses. And then times the sine of 45 degrees, which is the square root of 2 over 2. Yeah, so then all you have to do is multiply. So then remember that when you have two radicals, you're going to say, you're basically going to multiply, so you would say the square root of 3 times 2 over 2 times 2 plus, and since it's negative, it would be minus the square root of 2 over 2 times 2. So, then you would have the square root of 6 over 4 minus the square root of 2 over 4. So then you would say the square root of 6 minus the square root of 2 all over 4. And since you can't simplify it any further, this would be your final answer. Okay, and then we're gonna do, and these two are the same thing right here. They're the same thing, surprisingly. And then we say, okay, so then we say, so then we're going to do tangent of 165. So then that's going to be the tangent of 120. Just do, I'm going to do it in different colors. Plus 45, so that you guys can understand what I'm doing. And we're going to do the tangent of x plus y. So it's going to be tangent x, tangent y. So it's going to be tangent of 120 times tangent of 45 tangent x, tangent y. I think it's over 1 minus, or sorry, tangent x, it's tangent x plus tangent y, my bad. This is plus. So then you have plus tangent y, plus tangent of 45 degrees. Over 1 minus tangent of 120 times a tangent of 45 degrees. Okay, so then you're gonna have so you have 120 and then you have 45, so it's gonna be, so if we do the tangent of 120, it's basically like saying the tangent of 2 pi over 3, and that's in the second quadrant, so it's negative 1/2 square root of 3 over 2 for this part. So that corresponds to that, and then you say that the cosine, it's gonna be the, it's basically like saying, if you know from trig identities that tangent of theta equals sine of theta over cosine of theta, so it's gonna be, this is cosine, this is sine, so then you're gonna have the square root of 3 over 2 over negative 1/2, so it's gonna be the square root of 3 over 2 times negative 2, so then you're gonna have negative 2 square root 3 over 2, which is negative square root 3. So you're gonna have, for tangent of 120, you're gonna have the square root, negative square root of 3. So tangent of 120 is negative square root of 3. And then for tangent of 45, that's 1, because it's the square root of 2 over 2 divided by the square root of 2 over 2, that's 1. And then it's going to be 1 divided by 1, so, okay, so since we have both of them already, we're just going to plug it in. So we have, if we look over here, it's going to be again, tangent of 120 plus tangent of 45 divided by 1 minus tangent of x, or tangent of, sorry, divided by 1 minus tangent of 120, tangent of 45. So you then just plug in your values. Then you say negative the square root of 3 plus the square root of 2 over 2 divided by 1 minus negative square root of 3 times the square root of 2 over 2. So then you have, for this, you're going to have, it's basically like negative square root of 3 divided by 1. And if you can go ahead and do this, like cross multiply. So you would get negative 2 square root 3 plus the square root of 2 all over 2. Or you can go ahead and actually, like, if you don't like doing that, you can actually just do it, you know, separately, like, actually try adding it out. So, be negative 2 square root 3 plus the square root of 2 all over 2. So you would have negative 2 square root 3 plus the square root of 2 all over 2 times, or divided by 1, and these are being multiplied, so it'd be 1 minus the negative square root of 6 over 2. So it would be negative 2 square root 3 plus the square root of 2 over 2 times, actually it would be 1, okay, it'd be divided by 1, or give me a second, it would be divided by 2 over 2 plus the square root of 6 over 2. So then you would say negative 2 square root 3 over 2, square root 3 plus the square root of 2 over 2, divided by 2 plus the square root of 6 over 2. And then you can go ahead and just, you know, do the, like, flip it over and multiply it. So you would say negative 2 square root 3 plus the square root of 2 all over 2 times 2 divided by 2 plus the square root of 6. So, you would then cancel these two out, and you would say negative 2 square root 3 plus the square root of 2 over 2 plus the square root of 6. This would be your final answer. It just depends on the teacher whether or not they want it in, you know, they want a radical in the denominator. In case they don't, I'm just going to do it, like, rationalize it. So you would do negative 2 square root 3 plus the square root of 2 over 2 plus the square root of 6. And then what you have to do is you have to rationalize it by multiplying by the conjugate. So it'd be times 2 minus the square root of 6. So then you would say negative 2 square root 3 plus the square root of 2 times 2 minus the square root of 6 over 4 minus 6. Because it would be like saying a squared minus b squared equals a plus b times a minus b. So then you would say negative 2 square root 3 plus the square root of 2 times 2 minus the square root of 6 over negative 2, and then that would be your final answer, I believe. I mean, you can simplify it if you want. Actually, let me try to do it. So you'd say, if you really want to do the like, you can multiply both of these out. I mean, I don't think they would make you do that, but just in case, to simplify it all the way, you would do negative 4. It would be negative 4 plus 2 square root of 18, since it's square root of 3 times 6, plus 4, or no, plus, give me a second, plus 2 square root 2 minus the square root of 12. So then you would say, and then it would be all over 2. So that's like saying negative 4 over 2 plus 2 square root of 18 over 2 plus 2 square root of 2 over 2 minus the square root of 12 over 2. So then you would have negative 2 plus the square root of 18 plus the square root of 2, and then I think this one would be the square root. It would be minus the square root of 4 times the square root of 3 all over 2. That would be negative 2 plus the square root of 18 so in reality you would go ahead and simplify this one and then simplify this one more. So you would then say would be negative 2 plus the square root of 9 times 2 plus the square root of 2 minus the square root of 4, which is 2 square root 3 divided by 2. This would all be actually, no, it wouldn't. It would just be this one. So then you would say negative 2 plus the square root of 9 times the square root of 2 plus the square root of 2 minus the square root of 3. And then you would say negative 2 plus 3 square root 2 plus another square root 2 minus the square root of 3. So then you would say negative 2 plus, since it's a square root, it's going to be 4 square root 2 minus the square root of 3. And that would be your answer. So yeah, I hope this helped in a way. And in the next video, we're probably going to do the